Hey guys, I'm making this after I've made the video to tell you that this is a warning. Warning, 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 warning. This case deals with extremely sensitive topics involving children, as some of my cases do. But this one in particular involves sensitive anatomy, involves talk about the removal of sensitive anatomy. So again, warning, warning, warning. If this is going to affect you or trigger you in any way, don't watch it. Just watch another video and come back next week. I understand. Or come back Wednesday. I understand that this is going to be tough for a lot of people. We're not just talking about abuse in an intimate manner here. We're talking about mutilation. So again, warning. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Welcome to Kidmissing TV. I am your host, Angelina Wilson. There will not be a poster for this case because this goes under my serial offenders. Playlist. This serial offender got his name from the children that he terrorized. Not very often a serial killer and abuser gets his nickname from children. As a matter of fact, I think this is the only one. They called him Charlie Chop-Off. He killed 3 black children and 1 Puerto Rican child in Manhattan between 1972 and 1973. He attempted to murder 1 other child. All the victims were male, and all but one of the attacks involved mutilation of their male, or attempted mutilation of their male anatomy, which is why they called him Charlie Chop-Off. A man named Erno Soto was held as a suspect and confessed to one of the murders, but was considered unfit for trial in December of 1976 and returned to a mental institution. And they still consider the case open because they don't consider him the killer. The first murder occurred on March 9, 1972. 8-year-old Douglas Owens was found dead. He was stabbed 38 times, and his male organ had been cut, but not cut all the way through. He survived. Oh no, on April 20th, another black youth was repeatedly stabbed. His male part was severed from his body, although he survived his injuries. On October 23rd, 10-year-old Wendell Hubbard was stabbed to death on the roof of an East Harlem tenement block, and his male anatomy was also severed from his body. On March 6, 1973, a 9-year-old Puerto Rican child named Luis Ortiz was stabbed 38 times and likewise mutilated. Finally, on August 17, 1973, 8-year-old Stephen Cropper was reportedly slashed with a razor on the roof of a tenement block. He bled to death from an injury to his arm, although his anatomy was left intact. Oh, Ernesto tried to abduct a boy on May 15th. He was babbling a religious slogan when he was arrested. This doesn't sound like the same killer to me, because he didn't abduct these boys. He just mutilated them. Now, his name was taken out and substituted for the name Miguel Rivera in a book about the cases, and some people used that as the name, not realizing it was a pseudonym. Okay, I'm going to tell you each of the boys' stories now that we've got their names and what happened to them. Douglas was 8 years old. He was running errands for his mother when he vanished. And his body was found on the rooftop of a building on East 121st Street, 2 blocks from his home. At first, they thought it had to be a relative or an acquaintance because the attack was so personal. Then, a victim survived, whose name has not been released because he was sexually mutilated. I mean, he was a child. He was 10. He was also running errands on the day he was attacked. He was found in the hallway of an apartment building on Manhattan's West Side. He had been stabbed, sodomized, and had his male organ removed from his body. Yikes. Okay, I'm going to try to say this as nicely as I possibly can. And I had read this before, I had forgotten about it. When officers were looking for the severed anatomy, and they felt that the bad guy had taken it with him, some kind of sick souvenir, well, he did take it with him. But then he threw it somewhere. And it was found being played with by school children who did not know what it was. So it got rushed back to the hospital and hopefully reattached. And he was able to give a description of a slender male with a medium dark complexion that had a distinct mole on his left cheek. The offender also walked with an obvious limp. The offender had introduced himself to the boy as Michael and lured him into the building with the promise of 50 cents. Investigators created a composite sketch, which I have not seen, of the offender. The next victim, Wendell Hubbard, on October 23rd at approximately 5:30 p.m., Mary Hubbard, his mother, reported that her 9-year-old son was missing. They lived in an apartment building on 5th Avenue between 124th and 125th Streets on Manhattan's Upper East Side. Ooh! Upper East Side is rich. I kind of knew that when it said that they lived on 5th Avenue, but he was last seen playing in the courtyard behind their residence. She asked him to come in through the window of their residence, and when he didn't come in, she knew something was wrong because he just didn't do that. She was aware of the recent attacks and thus expected the worst. At approximately 9:45, 3 boys playing on the rooftop of the very building discovered Wendell's body. The boys ran and flagged down a police officer. Good for them. Mary identified him immediately. None of the residents in the building And his male anatomy was also removed and taken away by the offender. Luis Ortiz, age 10, was sent by his mother to a local store to buy milk and bread at 8:15 p.m. on March 6, 1973. There were witnesses that saw the man this time. He was found in a basement stairwell of a building at 200 West 106th Street. A dark-complected Hispanic male between the ages of 30 and 40 and stood about 5 feet 7 to 5 feet 10 inches tall. The offender had, like one victim mentioned, a noticeable mole on his left cheek. Authorities distributed posters emblazoned with the composite sketch to local residents in the hopes that someone would recognize the offender. And they finally figured out there was a serial killer. It took them long enough. Stephen Cropper may not be a victim of the same killer. He was slashed repeatedly with a razor blade, and although he was posed in a suggestive manner and his pants were pulled down and his shirt was opened, his anatomy was not mutilated. But people in the area claimed that they had seen a man resembling the composite sketch. The man was wearing a white short sleeve shirt, dark pants, and sneakers. Since the man was said to bear a resemblance to the sketch, authorities would include Stephen's murder to Charlie's victim count. There was a man named L. Gonzalez who was a 22-year-old Hispanic male who was a prospective employee in the medical records department of a local facility. And the picture of Charlie Chopoff, the composite, I should say, was distributed there, and apparently he looked enough like it that people started saying stuff. A man named Daniel Olivio was eliminated as a suspect, even though he was a perv, because he wasn't in Manhattan at the time. And of course, Ernesto Soto, we already talked about. And Ernesto Soto was schizophrenic and deemed not guilty by reason of insanity. The cases are officially unsolved and they remain open. I don't think if Ernesto Soto is schizophrenic, that he could have planned and did this in exactly the same way each time. I think the last victim, I'm not 100% certain, is a victim of the same killer, although his pants were pulled down. Now, could the guy have realized there were people around, heard people, and run off before he could do his Charlie chop off? Maybe. But he's listed as a victim, so he's a victim. He doesn't fit the MO of Charlie Chop-Off. Like I said, the kids called him that, which is weird, but understandable. It was a way for the kids to understand what was happening in a child sort of way, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't have a phone number or anything. I don't have a poster. What I do have is a serial killer in Manhattan who, if he was say he was on the oldest end of that in 1973, say he was 35. Well, my father was 29 and he would be 82. You'd be 6 years older than my father. 83, 45, 67, 88. So this man would be somewhere between 5 years younger, would be between 83 and 88 years of age, if was the age he's suspected to have been. Could he be alive? Sure. There's a real possibility he might not be, but he definitely could be. I know 90-year-old people who are alive. So, and well. So yeah, I think that they're nearing the end of a time when they could possibly capture this dude. Do they have any DNA? Do they still have the clothing of the victims? Do they still have did they do a swab on the victim who was assaulted in an intimate manner in an exit, so to speak? You get my drift. Sodomized. I think I can use that word. Well, I'm not monetized yet, so anyway, did they swab that area? Do they still have those swabs? Different things like that. In the 70s, they were starting to think about those things a little bit and keeping those things. I didn't find any information in my research that said whether they still had those things or not. Surely hope that they do. Put them in, see if they come up with a genetic genealogical match to someone, you know? So God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a tough one. Because of what this man did. And it has to be a man. I don't think there's any doubt that it's a man. especially since one of them was assaulted in a different manner. That's usually male. Like I said, did you get swabs? Did you keep the clothing? And you know what I mean? First of all, compare them all. Test all of the clothing, compare them all. Make sure you're dealing with a serial killer, which you are. And compare them to the other little boy who doesn't quite match the MO. And, you know, did you swab not only, how do I put this? Did the medical examiner at the time swab their, I'm just going to use medical terminology, their rectums and their mouths? I know it's horrendous to even think about, but we know what happened to one of them. So, um, so thank you so much. I know that this is heartbreaking. It's hard to hear. It's hard for me to say some of the things that happened in this case, but it's important not to be forgotten. These families deserve justice. Justice tends to move slow in this country if you're not pretty and white. So, and female. I mean, justice moves pretty slow in this country anyway, but particularly in those circumstances. So, thank you so much for joining me. We're trying to get to 750 by the 4th of July. Please consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye, guys. God bless you.